What's going on, guys? We are back for more Ultimate Black Panther. And depending on when you're watching this, I'll probably be on Marvel Rivals, battling away to unlock this Ultimate Storm skin they just dropped. But yeah, coming back, because we're getting caught up a bit here. Because if you guys hear anything in the background of either this video or the past few videos, just bear with me. My crib got flooded this week, my PlayStation and Xbox's lives flashed before my eyes, I had people pulling up the carpet and running a dehumidifier, another guy on the roof, painters, so yeah, I just been getting it in where I can. So with that said, Ultimate Black Panther issue 16. This issue gives us a pretty big moment that might fly under the radar for some, because it's here where T'Challa receives a huge affirmation about what's going to happen between him and Storm, with some of it also happening in this issue. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so coming back, this picks up in Nigeria, where we find a couple of guys who've been instructed to handle this scientist who's been exposed to dark vibranium overnight, after Dr. Mara set this guy up just so she could observe the results. And for the past 15 minutes, this guy's been saying all kind of gibberish that these dudes don't understand. His face starts to become disfigured, until eventually one of the two who brought him here just pops him. And when they do, they say something along the lines of, "I'll get this one, you did the last one," which lets us know that it's more than just this guy who's being experimented with and disposed of. And following this, we're introduced to Dr. Mara, who's on a video call with someone we can't see, which is kind of funny, but this just falls in line with what we've seen in the last couple of issues, where we learned that a group of Americans, including CIA agent Helen Fortin, are paying the Nigerian government to get them to obtain and research dark vibranium. And as of right now, we don't know exactly what the Americans want to use the dark vibranium for, mainly because this whole agreement's been top secret, and when the Nigerian government is asked about it, they act like they've never heard of it. But when it comes down to who Dr. Mara is talking to here, it's likely that this is connected to Hand, with ties that go all the way back to the Maker's Council. But in this conversation, Dr. Mara goes on to tell this person what she's observed about the quote-unquote element. Because she tells them here, the element is stable, then volatile. It has a benign effect on those in its proximity, until it doesn't. You've seen what happens when it doesn't. So that's where they ask for her conclusion. And at first it's like she doesn't want to say it because it sounds completely irrational. But this person urges her on to share it. And I imagine it's because they've seen and heard crazier things already. Because back in issue 15, we saw what happened to their previous lead scientist, Amon, who at the time I definitely called something else because I kept forgetting his name. But this guy was out of the picture just as quickly as he stepped in. But he was just one of many examples of how the Americans really don't care about how dangerous this element is or what happens to the Nigerians in the process of them trying to study it. And I imagine the way the Americans see it, it's a lot safer and cheaper for them to just pay the Nigerian government and these scientists and get them to study the element where it's at than it is for the Americans to try to come get it, take it back to the North American Union, only to have their people killed in the process, which is dirty for the Americans to do, but the Nigerians are taking that money. But either way, when Dr. Mara goes on to give her irrational conclusion, she says here it has a consciousness somehow. It has its own will. So they tell her, you believe the element's alive. And that's where Dr. Mara says, I believe we have no idea what we're dealing with. I heard about the man exposed to it, Adi, rumors that he was transformed by being in its proximity, so I attempted to replicate those conditions to similar effect, unsuccessfully, and since I'm talking like a mad woman, allow me to continue. So they tell her to go on. So the doctor says if I didn't think it was impossible, I would say the element's effing with me. It knows what I want to replicate, and it's driving the subjects insane, consciously. So yes, it's alive, and it has a dark sense of humor. So they tell her our interest is only in the yield capacity of the element. We are funding this effort and dealing with the difficulties of your nation because we see potential benefit in it. So Dr. Mara tells them she's fairly certain the element knows that too. So the next thing they ask is if the element has desire. And if so, just entertaining the idea, what does it want? So Dr. Mara tells them, I think it wanted to be found, just not by us. Which from here takes us back to what's going on with Storm and T'Challa's recent team up, because now they're working with the assassin from issue 15 who turned out to be Adi's brother, with Adi being the soldier from issue 14 who was possessed by the dark vibranium. And it's not until now where we learn the assassin's name is Chima. And I guess because now he's built up a bit more trust with T'Challa and Storm, but also, and I found this out when I was looking into how to pronounce his name, but also his name means God knows, which I think just fits very well within the scope of what's happening in this story, or even this world for that matter. But right now they're teaming up to intercept his brother, who's currently heading their way. And just before they do, Chima tells Storm that he's not gonna let her bring harm to his brother. So she just tells him like, I do not need your permission, which is true, but as this argument gets heated, T'Challa chimes in and he's like, enough. If it is possible, it will be done. Which on one hand is basically what you would expect T'Challa to say, but also because we've seen T'Challa just recently throughout this past year of his life come to realize how much he's needed to the people outside of Wakanda, it shows that motive to him wanting to go the extra mile to keep the people outside of his kingdom safe, but at the same time, like we saw when he was dealing with Khonshu and Ra, T'Challa's gonna do what he believes is necessary when the time comes. And we'll get into more about what's going on in his head as this continues, but while they're here, an explosion goes off in the distance, in the direction where Adi was coming in from. So right away, Chima hops on his bike to get out there and save his brother. And T'Challa tries to stop him for a moment here, but as soon as this dude hopped on that Ducati, he was gone. But even still, Storm and T'Challa head in just after. And when Chima gets to his brother, who was already a beast when he was human, so now that he's corrupted, it's just crazy. But when Chima arrives, he tries to reason with his brother, only to find out the hard way that his brother, Adi, is long gone. And it's one of those things where I don't know if I'd call it a trope, because I wouldn't say it happens often enough to be considered one, but when you have instances like this when someone is either corrupted or possessed, and their talents are being used with whatever this creature is that they've become, you usually have that one person who's like, no, he's still in there, I can save him. Well, Chima, he tried to use that tactic, and the only thing it led to was him getting his dome fried. And by the time T'Challa tries to get there and help, it's too late. And this creature, it doesn't attack T'Challa immediately, and instead it tells him, you are favored, speak with me. So T'Challa entertains this conversation, and at one point he asks this thing like, what are you? Because before he's only heard its words, both in Wakanda and in the actions of Khonshu and Ra. So it tells him here, I am what you would call a harbinger, here to open a gateway between the now and the old. As I said, you are favored. Your land was first to find our gift. You could stand at the pinnacle of a new world, which from here has T'Challa saying, I'm here to protect my kingdom and its people. And it just tells him, your name is T'Challa, you do not understand your blood. Have you ever asked yourself, why was your line allowed to rule? Why you can hear our song? Why you have visions? Why you fear your dreams? You belong to us, T'Challa. Your line always has. And as soon as he says this, it's go time. But this brief monologue from, and I'm just going to call him the Harbinger, even though this is very similar to what we saw when T'Challa faced the Progenitor, when the Sorcerer Supreme released it. But this brief monologue from the Harbinger, it just brings back so much of what's been teased before, like the whole idea of the voices inside the vibranium being from the past, the things Matron Amala said about T'Challa's connection to it, and how it would change him, which we've seen a little bit of so far. But right here where T'Challa gives Ororo the signal to step in, when she does, she smacks this guy with the lightning right away. But when she does, he tells her, Woman of Light, you cannot wield these forces against me. Just before he parries her attack, just like something out of Claire Obscure Expedition 33. But what he says here is really important, and I think this hits T'Challa pretty hard when he hears it as well. Because back in issue 2, just after T'Challa's father had passed, when he went to see Matron Amala, she told him a prophecy of a woman of light who would come to him and how they would make a bond during the time of war, as well as how this woman of light would eventually give him an heir. And ever since T'Challa was told this prophecy, we'd kind of been waiting for someone outside of himself and Matron Amala to tell him that this woman was Storm and not Okoye, even though T'Challa had basically known and kept it to himself ever since the first time he saw her. So for him to hear it now from the Harbinger, this just further solidifies something that T'Challa's already known for the past 14 issues. Because T'Challa's been skeptical of most of the prophecies, but this one he's kind of been like, well, nah, I got a feeling about this one. But as soon as Storm is hit, he goes in, knocks the Harbinger out of the way, and he leaps out to catch her just in time. Because the last thing T'Challa needs right now is to go back to his wife and tell her that he just lost the love of his life. So for Okoye's sake, T'Challa's just making sure that his soulmate is safe. But with taking the time to do this, this allows the Harbinger to get away. But when he does, he says here, the gateway calls me. I have my task to accomplish. They are coming, and you will play your role in their will, as your line always has. So after this, we jump forward some time later, with Ororo waking up violently just before T'Challa tells her to take it easy, and that he brought her somewhere safe after she fell unconscious. And he also admits to her when she got hit, he thought she was dead. So he says to her, had it happened, it would have been his fault. And she just tells him, I'm very clear about whose fault it was. But as this conversation continues, it strengthens the bond between the two of them like never before. And it's not too over the top, because at first he tells her and Eric don't have to endure all this and how they're free to go, because T'Challa doesn't want to drag her in any further and see her get hurt. But Storm doesn't go for it, and she's like, whatever he is got the better of me, but that doesn't mean I'm a coward. And it's right here where you can tell that T'Challa's kind of struggling with everything that's coming together right now. Because when he tells her that he's not trying to call her a coward, but instead it's the things that he sees, the things that he feels, and this whole vibranium situation which has compromised Wakanda and him. And you can tell that it's hard for him as the king, as someone who's supposed to have it all together, to see a path through this where he comes out alive on the other side, let alone for his kingdom to still be standing. So Ororo tells him here, don't be another powerful man, bowing to a noble death, T'Challa. It is beneath you. You're afraid. You think Eric isn't? You think I haven't seen him struggling? Do you think your Queen Okoye sees you as a man without fear? You got away with that against Moon Knight. All this pretending to know exactly what to do, what we faced out there isn't Moon Knight. You have no idea how to stop this from happening. And that is permitted, T'Challa. Thank you for saving my life, but you have to be honest with me, King T'Challa. We're both afraid, but that can't stop us. You'll remember everything that thing told you. You'll work the problem and find a path. Which right there just puts a battery in T'Challa's back, because he's like, okay, yeah, I'll work the problem. He mentioned the gateway. But with knowing this, it's enough to make it clear whatever this gateway is, they can't let him open it. Especially after that whole speech about bringing the past together with the present. Which I gotta admit, that has me thinking of, okay, if this gateway can travel to the past, this could become something huge in the larger picture. Either as something that could be used against the Maker, or it could tell us why we haven't seen much of the Maker's impression on Wakanda. Because he might have tried it before, traveled to Wakanda's past, saw some demons, and the Maker's like, you know what? Nah, I'm good. I'm just gonna leave this alone. But we'll have to wait and see where that goes. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But with T'Challa mentioning the gate and saying that they can't allow it to be opened, Storm is just like, okay, then the path is clear. Then after that, T'Challa asks her, what are you afraid of? And she only tells him here, being confined. I'll tell you the story some other time. Now, if you don't mind, I need to find my balance after this. I'm going to make it rain. The sound comforts me. So yeah, this issue is a pretty big deal. Because with the scene T'Challa and Ororo bonding here, with them both revealing to each other some of the most vulnerable things about themselves, in addition to the callback to the prophecy T'Challa was given. In a way, it makes you think of the other prophecies, like, oh man, things are about to start ramping up. And since from here, the story's going to shift over to the team up between Okoye and Killmonger, which will likely include more of the Sorceress Supreme as well, but I imagine this is going to bring some crazy reveals around the corner, because we still got to find out if Okoye is a spy, and like we talked about before, the whole dynamic between Killmonger and Anan, the Sorcerer Supreme, where in their case, we still got to see what Anan wants to use Killmonger for, with her admiring his strength so much. Because I'll say it before and I'll say it again, I wouldn't be surprised if she's using some of this vibranium chaos to get something out of it for herself. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and I gotta go hop on Marvel Rivals because they just dropped the Ultimate Storm skin and I need it. And I think they called it Ultimate Wind Rider, and I mean they should have called it Woman of Light. But hey, either way, I'll take it. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. That'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.